Do you like timeless classics?
Yes.
Are you looking for curated designer vintage?
I am actually.
You are? You guys are in the market?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I have some breaking news for you.
Spell.
Look no further than Funny Girl Vintage, your go-to destination for curated, one-of-a-kind vintage pieces that'll have you looking and feeling amazing. And they have a showroom in Culver City. You can book your one-on-one style consultation at funnygirlvintage.com or on their Instagram at funnygirlvintage. And guess what, ladies?
What?
For our podcast listeners, you can get 10% off using the code NIGHT.
How do you spell that?
NIGHT for 10% off. And we thank Funny Girl Vintage for sponsoring this episode. Well, welcome back to Night School. I'm Jessie Zand.
I'm Alana Cloud Robinson.
And today, buckle the up, schoolies, because we have one of our most iconic guests in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jason Earles.
Woo! Thank you for having me. Sweet Jeezy Pete's, here we are.
This is incredible. If I had told my 12-year-old self that I would be interviewing Jason Earles, she'd be like, shut up, you're ugly, don't lie. Like, this is incredible. Like, I'm so excited that you're here right now. You guys are probably like, how the do you know Jason Earle? We actually met because you're doing stand-up now, yes?
Yeah, relatively new development.
What's that kind of been like for you starting? Because it's such a different skill set than
It is
acting.
a different skill set. I think there's like lots of things in comedy that sort of translate no matter what the format is,
Totally.
whether it's a movie or a sitcom or stand-up. But just the actual like nuts and bolts of sitting down and writing is a different experience. You know, in sitcoms or in scripts, you're trying to tell a story, and there's like a certain structure to that, and it's just a little more open and nebulous with the joke writing. Some people write great jokes, some people tell stories. You know, you kind of got to figure your voice and like what you want to say. And it's just a whole new way of trying to like wrap my brain around comedy.
It was cool though to see you because, you know, I'm not going to give away obviously your set, but like it was cool how open you were and like how you addressed pretty much what everybody was thinking off the top. You know what I mean?
I just feel like you sort of have to address the elephant in the room. Like,
Totally.
There's a bunch of people that aren't going to know who I am. They didn't grow up on Hannah Montana or Kickin' It or any of that stuff. But the people that are in the room, like, they're going to be like, is that the guy from this? So you just got to get that out of the way, like now.
I have to admit, I was at that show, and that was what I said to myself as I saw you.
You were like,
walking
is
into
it
the
really?
room.
He's shorter than I thought he was.
He looks familiar.
Yeah.
But you also have facial blindness.
I do have facial
I do
blindness.
too.
It's horrible.
I do.
Everybody thinks I'm just like a cunt, and I'm not.
No.
I'm very nice.
It's
I
a
just
real thing.
forget. Because it's, it's that LA thing where it's like a social currency to be like, who are you? And
Yeah.
I'm always like, sorry, who are you?
I'm worst like face blindness like story
Oh my God,
that has to
tell
do with
me,
an
tell me.
audition. I actually went and I was auditioning for this video game, and I was there probably 45 minutes early before the audition, and the woman came out and she was like the casting director, and she was like, hey, you probably don't remember me, but I'm so-and-so, and I brought my daughter to the set on Hannah like 5 years ago. You were so nice. You took us around. You took pictures. You know, we put on the Miley wig, the whole thing. And I've always wanted to like pay you back. And like, I wanted to bring you in for stuff. And we talked for probably 10 minutes. And then right at the end, she had asked me a question about my wife because she was around before I got divorced.
Yeah.
And the question threw me off. Like it suddenly like put me in a weird headspace because I was thinking about the divorce or whatever, right? And it was like right before I went in for the audition. So because my head was in this like kind of weird place, and I went in for the audition, and it was another guy. He was like the head casting person.
Yeah.
So I introduced myself to him. And then there was a woman. And I was like, hey, Jason, great to meet you. And as I'm standing there getting ready to start the audition, I realized I just reintroduced myself to the casting director that I had spent 10 minutes to. But I was so messed up in the head over that like I just could not like. And so then literally as I'm getting ready to start the audition, that's all I can think about. It was the all-time worst audition ever. I never ended up getting called back by that casting. But my face blindness was 100% like responsible for like it's bad.
It's a really I've done things like that. I've literally done things like that. And now, I mean, everybody makes fun of me. Every time I'm introduced to someone or there's like, a group of people where you're converging and if anybody doesn't immediately put their hand out, I go, it's so nice. Good to see you. Say it again.
It's like you're having a stroke.
I
I
just
I just sometimes go, hi.
like I
wait.
genuinely I don't know what to do half the time. Like I don't know if I'm like so great to meet you.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm afraid that I'm coming off like a dick because like I don't say any pleasantry but I don't know if I'm messing up the context of how I know that. So I totally
Yeah.
I totally
So
get
Jason,
that.
how many times have you not recognized me and said hello?
Keida, you are the most recognizable person
are
like of all
recognizable.
time.
You're kind of
Okay.
always
Like
in like a uniform, though.
Yeah,
You've
yeah.
always got the blue hat on, and it's
Yeah.
either the bomber or the jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Like, where there's not a lot of it. Like,
Which I
you're-
wish, honestly, more people
Is
would
this
do for
a
people like
critique?
us.
Like what?
No,
No, this
it's
isn't
a
me
good
being
thing.
shady. This was a
I'm talking
compliment.
it's on point
specifically to you.
branding. It's on point branding. Like literally, you meet
thank
Keida
you.
once, and you
Thank
know,
you.
and it's just in there forever.
Yeah.
You're the one person that I've met that I'm like, oh yeah, Keida.
Yeah. You're
Well,
welcome.
that's- all right, thank you.
You're
I do have
welcome.
another. Thank you. I do have another question. So when you look at when you get up in the morning and you look at yourself in the mirror, are you like, who the fuck is this guy?
It's
Keida.
Yes, but not for the reason that you think. It's like, how
That's
did
like
I
a
get so?
neurological
Yeah.
condition.
that's a traumatic brain injury.
I look at myself in the mirror and I go, who the hell is that? Because I got old all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like
That's-
I was boyish for like 35 years.
Yeah.
And then I woke up one
You
day and I
built
was
a
like,
career on
the
it."
frick happened to you, bro?
Obviously, I mean, we got to get into the Hannah Montana of
Yeah.
it all. Like,
Yeah, that happened.
what's it like being so ingrained in the iconography of the Zennial brain?
It's so weird because like I'm like the biggest nerd and like my life is so like average and regular and whatever, you know, like the highlight of my day is when my cat walks up and sticks his butt in my face. Like it's literally just like regular, like, and then I run into people like out and about
Yeah.
and they're so excited and
Yeah.
it meant so much to them growing up, like watching
Yeah.
the show that like, there's a weird sort of humbling and almost disassociative thing that happens. Cause
Really?
I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that, didn't
Yeah.
I? But it was like 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
you like, it just doesn't like play into my day-to-day life so
Right.
much anymore. But like, it is always really, really humbling when like your introduction is humbling to me. Like using the word iconic in any way as related to me makes me laugh. I'm just like, that's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you were so a part of, Alana went to a hippy dippy school, so she was raised on like 60s cartoons.
I
but like,
was raised on. I didn't know what year it was growing up. So
That's amazing.
yeah, you were.
I watched, but I did when I got a little bit older. I didn't grow up at the same age that everyone else was watching Hannah
Yeah.
Montana. But when I got older, I watched Hannah Montana and SpongeBob. It was like my rebellion. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna watch real shows about
Yeah.
real kids that aren't 85 years old now.
You're not gonna watch Petticoat
Yeah.
Junction or
But it is. It's like it is iconic.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things about that show that worked in particular, just from the standpoint of like, it was a show where you felt like by the end of the episode, everybody was slightly better than they were at the beginning. Like they learned some sort of a life lesson or like they made some sort of a connection with the family member or a
Yeah.
friend. And there was something sort of heartwarming and nice about it, but it wasn't like really preachy. It was just, it felt like the messaging was good. And there was something
Oh yeah, like at the
and
end
it was
of
so
every episode,
aspirational. It was
hug.
so aspirational. Like the idea that there's a girl that like she wanted to live a real life and have real friends and
Yeah.
experience all of that, but then she puts the wig on and she gets to live this amazing
Yeah.
pop star life.
To your point about like, the way the show kind of like one thing I found too was it really depicted the reality of like a teen girl's
Yes.
troubles.
Yeah.
Like when she messed up or did something wrong, it was so much more relatable than
Yeah.
other shows. Like
Yeah.
there was the life lessons for
Yeah.
like a young girl felt genuinely
Yeah.
educational.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Which is funny because it's a room full of like 50-year-old Jewish men writing the episodes. So you're just like, how do
They
you
really
have an insight
tapped
into this
the
like
mind of a teen girl.
13-year-old
Yeah.
from Nashville? Like,
Yeah.
No, we did have a few exceptional like lady writers in the
Yeah.
in the
That's
room that,
awesome.
like,
Especially, I mean,
yeah.
if you think about Hollywood at that time too,
Yeah.
like that wasn't. It
Yeah.
was typically a room full of men writing
Yeah.
these scripts, which we can get into my qualms about that later.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
saw that you were a part of High School Musical,
Yeah,
the reboot,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you were you like a dialect coach?
No, I think people sometimes confuse dialect versus dialogue. Like dialect would be like if you like have a British accent and
Yeah,
you need somebody
yeah.
to like. I wasn't doing that.
No, okay.
No. It was more like an acting coach.
Okay,
like,
cool.
and since it was Disney was doing this show we shot it in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh.
And there was a bunch of cast members that had never been on like series regulars on shows, and
Yeah.
they had never worked like away from home before.
Oh, okay.
So they wanted somebody who like had some credibility with the kids and who had kind of been there, done that, and understood the Disney like brand and like just kind of how all that stuff operates. And they wanted to know if I would go out there and be basically like the den mother for the kids.
Funny.
So I was like sort of the on-call like person, like when they needed professional help, when they needed personal help, when they needed like an advocate for whatever reason, whether it was they were uncomfortable with something in the script or they were uncomfortable, they didn't know how to say that, like, I don't feel comfortable wearing that wardrobe. Like I was just sort of like the advocate on set for them to
so sweet.
get through that stuff. And then also just like from an acting perspective, it's like I would run lines with them. I would sort of talk through character stuff. I'd help them break the scripts down because like in sitcoms, we would pretty much shoot it in order. Especially when you're doing live audience shows. And then, you know, like in single camera things, you're shooting everything based on location. So it's out of sequence timing wise. And so just being able to track where you are in a story, like what information do you know in this scene that you don't know in that scene, but you're shooting that scene first. And so like I would help them just sort of like track where they were in the story.
That's so interesting.
Is that in normal practice?
Yeah.
With
no.
Yeah, I was gonna say I
No.
don't think I've ever heard of that before.
No, but I think like more shows should take advantage of it. What's funny is I was there for the kids originally because there was probably 8 of the most kind of talented kids you've ever seen in your life on that show. Olivia Rodrigo came out of that show, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that originally that's how it was sort of pitched, and then we'd get adults who would like guest star on the show, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's really cute that you do that for the kids." And then by like the second day, they were like, "Can we run lines? Can we talk about this stuff?" And so like the adults in the show ended up using me just as much as the kids did by the end, which was fun. It made me feel like the thing that I was doing was actually like kind of worthwhile and like it was useful and
right.
And
Not
I think
just
more,
a chaperone.
But also the advocacy element is
it's
huge.
huge.
I feel like a lot of situations would
have been
perhaps
avoided.
be avoided if there was somebody trusted.
Yeah,
who
I think
had
historically, like
experience.
kids television, family television hasn't had enough
Supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have set teachers that are sort of there, and that's like their position. We had this gal, Linda, was our set teacher on Hannah, and she was incredible. She was very much an advocate for the kids. Like Miley's schedule was insane. She was like doing the show, she was doing recordings, she was preparing for her her concerts and her tours. But there's a lot of shows that like if you're getting close to the end of your kid time, you know, you can only have them on set for 7 hours or whatever it is. They'll be like, "Hey, you know, set teacher, can we have like 15 more minutes? Like, here's $100. Here's like they'll try to like game the system." And Linda was like, "You lose her in 45 seconds. So if you want to go, like even if we're in the middle of a take,
amazing.
they would just
Go
yank
Linda.
her off the
Fuck yeah,
set."
Linda.
So we were actually on Hannah specifically between myself and Linda and our showrunners, like Steve Peterman was the showrunner for that show. We tried to take good care of the kids. And I think it's one of the reasons why, like, you know, everybody came out relatively unscathed from that show.
Yeah.
Miley's got her own, like, she's got a wild personality and she's like out there and she's exploring herself and like, but there's nothing like bad about that girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing
It's really
malicious
really
or
true.
like.
And I feel like a lot of that, I mean, I'm speaking as an outsider, but I feel like a lot of that too was like the instinct to, we were kind of talking about this, like that threshold where child actors feel like they really need to show like I am an adult now, like, and really break out in a big way. The pressure to be like, I'm no longer that child. Because like, obviously society holds on. They're like, oh my God, you know, the person will be 18 years old and they're like, how dare you be an adult? And it's like, they're an adult. They're moving into adulthood. Yeah.
And Miley definitely, I feel like, went through a phase where she was sort of like, not necessarily rejecting the Hannah Montana of it all, but she definitely wanted to like express her own musical tastes and her personal tastes and all that stuff. And there was, I think, a period of time when the show first ended that she really did want to put some distance between. But she feels like she's softened quite a bit on that front and like shows much more love and appreciation and stuff for like the fans and what the experience was and what it meant to people. I think she really recognized how much of a part of a lot of young people's lives the show was, and so you can't be mad at that, you know.
There's a trajectory with child stars in terms of like breaking out of that child, that public's perception of them as this character or this, you know, child actor. And is there like a blueprint of how they are supposed to kind of shift public perception away from that character?
No, that stuff has changed so much. Like, I mean, I think that's one of the things that Disney over the maybe the last 10 years has started to recognize, that like there needs to be more infrastructure and how to help like support the kids while they're on the shows.
Yeah.
And then a little bit the transition out, just having more support with things like social media and the pressures that come with that. We were very lucky on Hannah. The worst that we had to deal with really was like the paparazzi and like TMZ. You know, you'd go out and you'd get hit at the airport with the TMZ cameras and they would ask you dumb questions about whatever. But Twitter like kind of started during Hannah, and like Instagram wasn't around and Facebook was kind of a thing. But like those pressures weren't as prevalent. And now so much of like that kid actor experience is cultivating that social media presence.
Yeah.
That I think Disney does do. That's the one I know most specifically. Of
course. Yeah.
I think they do try to have more assistance in that area, but like everybody's journey is totally different. Like some kids are just experts at it and it doesn't phase them and they use it as a marketing tool and it's great. Not great, but like it works for them.
Yeah.
And then I've watched kids just crumble under it. Like they you get 2 bad comments on it and it just wrecks them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Suddenly they're not eating because somebody said that they were, fat in a post, or, suddenly they're like not willing to take any risks comedically in something because they feel like people were laughing at them instead of with them, And that was the trickiest thing. Even on Hannah, I think there was moments where, and Kicking It, the show I did after Hannah, where kids would like read the stuff and then where they went from being very, very funny on the shows and willing to try anything to being really guarded about, like, they didn't want to be the butt of the joke because they were afraid of like what the
negative comments were going to be.
Even though like it would be 2 people online that would say something negative, but like 98% of the people that were watching the show were like, I love you because you're so relatable. You're not afraid to like be messy or
be silly.
Miley, I think that's really like what her greatest asset was early on, was she would absolutely be the butt of the joke. She would, you could dump a plate of spaghetti on her head because she knew that at the end of the day, she was talented. She was beautiful. She could put whatever she wanted out there when she was like being herself. But people would like feel like, oh, I could totally hang out with her if she was willing to be the butt of the joke on the show. And so it just made her she reminded me of Cameron Diaz back in the day. I think that was her big charm back in the day, was like she was so goofy, stunningly beautiful, but like not afraid to be the butt of the joke. And so there was just something very like approachable and relatable about that.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Great comparison too. That is
that's a very
true.
good comparison. Yeah. And especially in terms of comedic styling. Miley had her mom involved a lot in her career, like early on, like her as a manager, and it sounded like that she had some support and her dad was on the show. Like, how important do you think it is for these kids to have their parents around and the support there?
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. I do. I think I've seen some like terrible set parents that make the whole experience awful and will poison the well for the kid. They'll get it in the kid's head, who's like 13 and doesn't know any better, that like, oh, you need that because they've got that. Do you know what I mean? Like they start to make the comparison thing, and the kid's just like having a great time, part of the group, having a good experience, and the parent actually sort of poisons their point of view about it. And that's always like a big bummer to me. Parents that are like active and like present, but not like overbearing. Like Leo Howard played the main kid on the second show that I did called Kicking It. It was like this martial arts sitcom. And he had been an actor since he was like really, really young. And his parents were like always around and they were very supportive. And they were like, if you turn into an asshole, we're just going to like yank you from this. But like, they didn't get in the way of him like approaching it professionally and like, and making friends with people on set, whether they were adults on the show or the other kids on the show. And he's like one of the most well-adjusted, like super professional, just great young men that I have the pleasure of knowing. And I think a lot of it was at the time when we were doing the show, his parents were just really like, supportive, but not like in an overbearing, like awful way. So I think it plays a huge part. And for Miley, like what's funny is, I mean, her parents were involved in lots of different ways, but like for a long time, it was her mama, it was her grandma who was around, she was the one that was just like, you need to like keep your head on straight. Like she would like set Miley right when Miley would get a little like too big for her britches or like get a little, like she'd start whining about something and grandma would be like, you have nothing to complain about. So she was around a lot, and she was. I loved her. She was like the sweetest woman.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think there's a perception sometimes that people will always say with like when the documentaries come out in this kind of stuff, they'll always say like, where were the parents?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, kind of to part of your point, sometimes the parents were there and that was the problem.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the presence of certain.
Point.
I mean, I was watching a documentary the other day. I don't even remember what it was called or like what the show is because like it was like the YouTube show, The Squad, something like that.
Did they do like
Squad,
one of those
Squad.
houses where they were like all doing content and stuff together?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There was like one mother in particular who kind of what you were saying, like she would get in her daughter's head and like make her make these. It's really sad because they're like 13 and she's like splitting up friendships because her friend had more lines in a show and stuff. So it's
when
really
it gets
sad.
when it gets in that area where it's like you're starting to count lines or like you just go, well, why is her dressing room bigger than my dressing room? Like kids don't give a shit about that. And then,
but they will if you tell them to.
They will if you tell them to.
Yeah.
So
from what you observed on Hannah, like you had a pretty positive experience, and then you were on, High School Musical as a den mother. Like, how has the industry shifted in terms of its treatment of child actors?
I think that there's definitely more awareness of like having to protect them from more things. You know what I mean? Like they're like the social media stuff is shockingly like dangerous and bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the kids' self-esteem and like even just the need of providing like psychological assistance, whether it's like a den mother or an actual on-call therapist that if a kid's having a problem, they need to talk to somebody. Like those are resources that are like suddenly available now that like
That's amazing.
you wouldn't have thought you needed, but you actually like really do now. Just the pressures are intense and real and so much of their lives are so public now.
Yeah.
Like I said, Miley, she would get like chased around by paparazzi, but like you can avoid that by not being around.
Yeah.
The social media stuff, there's such pressure for you to like put so much of your own life out there. And your reps will like push you to do that and to be
you're building
engaged.
a brand.
You're building a brand. And that's a lot. It's already tough enough to be 13 or 14 years old and be growing up and dealing with hormones and body changes and relationships and your first love and your first heartbreak. And now you're doing it and trying to cultivate that and put it out on social media. I think that's probably the biggest like adjustment now versus then is sort of dealing with that. Initially, I think Disney tried to prevent people from participating in it, and then they realized the train had already left the station, and so now they're trying to help figure out how to like manage it in a way where it doesn't break the kids by the time they're done with the shows.
Well, good. That's actually that's a positive change. I mean, I think we often talk about social media on our podcast, and it's something that we all have to navigate, and especially with the podcast as well. But, at 28, I know that, like, negative comments are generating engagement, and I can just, like, radically accept that. Like, I find it hilarious now.
Yeah.
I'm like, beef all you want. You're getting my numbers up. But I'm 28.
Yeah.
I think at 13, it would have 100% broken me.
Yeah.
And because I remember getting mean comments on the bathroom wall then, shit that still sticks with me.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it being
back in the day, IMDb used to have message boards.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and that was so like when Hannah first dropped. I was older when I was doing Hannah, like a lot of people. Like I was around your age, so I theoretically should have been like better adjusted and all that stuff. And the first couple of like message boards, like you'd run one comment and be like, "Oh my God, Jackson's the funniest part of Hannah Montana," and then it'd be like the next comment would be like, "What the fuck is wrong with that guy? Like, what disease does he have?" Like they thought they're like, "Does he have the Andy Malinakis disease or whatever the fuck?" Like they would say crazy shit, or then the other thing too, you'd be like, "What?" Like
he's so mean.
It's so mean.
It's so mean.
And I ended up like, I was like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm not gonna like participate in this. And I was like old.
Yeah.
Like I was like I graduated from college. I was like working a good job. I was like as stable and as like emotionally like balanced as a person could or should be.
Yeah.
And it was still too much for me.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I was 13, I'd throw myself off a bridge.
Oh, 100%.
Like, oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. I'm really glad they have the resources. That actually makes me really happy because we've often talked about on the show, Izzy has a running bit where she's like, I think all child actors should be AI. And like, we're like, there's some validity in that.
I know.
Like,
well, what's funny is that some people would be like, early on when they found out how old I was and I was on the show, they're like, don't you feel bad? You took that job from a kid. And I'm like, listen to what you just said,
Yeah.
asshole.
Yeah.
Like, no, like that kid should be in school. Like I'm a grown ass man who went to college for this. I deserve to have a job, and if I can bring a little stability and not have to and save some kid, like I don't feel bad at all.
I think it totally changes the dynamic when you do have someone that's like has their frontal lobe clicked into place on set. You know, that does change the dynamic, particularly with somebody who's like top of the call sheet. Like you're in a lot of those scenes, like you are interacting with those actors. That changes the vibe, and I think a much better way.
Yeah.
We need to have more den mothers like Jason Earles. Right? Disney, Nickelodeon. This is my call. This is my call to action to you fucks. All right,
I'm
step
available.
it the fuck up. Yeah, he's available.
I'm available.
He's
I work
available
at a reasonable rate. No.
Yeah, he works at a reasonable rate, and he might even do a guest appearance. You're welcome. All right.
What's funny is like on Hannah, like so my set I talk about it a little bit, but like Disney was unaware of my age when they hired me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It wasn't until like about halfway through the first season that they discovered how old I actually was. And
how? Don't they have your like?
Yeah, one guy in the office who processes the paperwork.
Okay, but the rest
like they're
of them,
not like paying attention. The showrunner, Steve Peterman, who actually he won a couple of Emmys, incredibly nice guy. He's like a mentor to me, whatever. But he came up to me about 8 episodes into the first season, and he was like, "Hey, like so you're not 18, like you're older." And he goes, "I just wanted to thank you for lying to us, because if we had known after we shot the pilot, we would have replaced you."
Yeah.
Because
were you conscious of that?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I was
really.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, that's so amazing.
But he's like, but I'm so glad that we didn't, because like you're like the rock for us. Like, like you're great as the brother, but like you are such a good example for the other kids on the show, and even Billy Ray, who didn't have much multi-camera sitcom experience. You know, it was just
really.
No. It was like you're a really like nice, stable presence for us. So like, thank you for basically lying to us. And thank you for not giving us the opportunity to fire you when we would have.
You just can't get away with that shit anymore. It's like,
No.
I wish you could because of social media.
I mean, legally, they're not allowed to ask you because it's age discrimination. Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
the only thing they can really ask you, like in an audition, is like, are you 18? So they know whether or not you're of legal age, or whether they have to hire a set teacher or whatever. I actually tried to be honest at one point. There was one day where I went to 2 auditions in the same day. And like in the morning, they were like, how old are you? And I was like, I don't want to say I'm over 18. They're like, well, it's fine between us. Like how old are you really? And the role was for like a 17-year-old or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, all right, well, I'm 27. And they're like, yeah, I could see that. And then I didn't get it because like I told them, and suddenly that's like what they saw. Yeah. And then later on, I auditioned for a role that same day, and the role was like 16. And then they were like, how old are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm 18. And they're like, it's just, I think you just look a little too young for this. And it was and I was like, fuck you and fuck this business. Like you're all assholes. Yeah. So from that point on, I was just like, I'm 18 and that's just what it is. And I wasn't gonna I wasn't gonna deny myself the opportunity. Even like, I don't want to give more reasons for people to say no. Yeah. Because there's already so many reasons for them to say no. So so that's
so funny.
So by the time Hannah came around, I was like,
you're right. You were seasoned. You were like, I'm 18. Don't look at my license.
Actually, the best part is, so I've told this story before, but like Lisa London was the casting director for the pilot, and I had auditioned for her for this movie Grandma's Boy. It was like an Adam Sandler produced.
Hilarious name.
Okay, so I auditioned, and it was a really, really good audition, but I wasn't like the right type-wise for it. But Lisa remembered me, and she always thought I was funny. And then like maybe 6 weeks later, she brought me in for the audition for Hannah Montana. Yeah. And before I go in for the audition, she's walking me in, and she's like, hey, I know you're 19 years old, because that's what I told her on the movie. She goes, they're trying to cast this as close to the age as possible. Will you lie to them and tell them that you're 18?
Let's
and
go,
I was
Lisa.
like, yeah, I think I can do that. I already lied to you saying that I'm 19, so I'll fucking lie to them that I'm 18.
What's another year?
What's another year? Like, and then so like that's what I told them. And then literally as I did the audition and as I'm walking out, she's like, they loved you. Will you test for the network next week? And I was like, I guess this is my life now.
Speaking of the show, though, so when I was, telling, my fellow Zennials that you were going to be on the show, they were like, no fucking way. That's crazy. But there is this perception about, like, for those who aren't really familiar with the industry, like, did this show, they were like, is he set up for life now? Like, what is that?
That's a great question. This is the reality of the situation. They're really good paying jobs, right? Before being on Hannah, I was an extra, a stand-in, and a substitute teacher. And being on Hannah paid significantly more than those jobs. That being said, when Hannah was on, the contract was, it was before SAG and AFTRA merged. So it was an AFTRA basic cable agreement.
Okay.
So because of that, that's like the worst television contract that you can be under.
Right.
And one of the ways that you make your money is through residuals. So like if they air the episode a bunch of times, you make money on the backside. So for Hannah, since it was the AFTRA basic cable agreement, one of the things they're allowed to do is whatever they pay you above scale, they're able to credit themselves back in your residuals.
And explain scale.
Okay, so like I don't know what scale at the time was. Like let's say let's just for easy numbers, let's just say that scale is, as a series regular, let's say it's $5,000 an episode.
Okay.
And then because you're whatever, you sign your deal and they pay you $10,000 an episode. So what happens is they pay you the $10,000 and then they air the episode, and then the first $5,000 worth of residuals that you should have gotten, they keep because they paid you above scale.
Oh.
Got it.
The double whammy was, at the time, usually a reuse, like one residual, like re-airing, is like they air it once and that counts as one.
Yeah.
The AFTRA agreement said, if I air this episode today at noon, I have a full 24 hours to air it as many times as I want, and it counts as one reuse. So they might air a new episode and then reuse it 6 times in a day.
And they would.
And then you get one reuse out of it, which they credited themselves back in your residuals.
Oh, so you got fucked.
So I got fucked.
God.
Oh, and what about this? If they paid you $5,000 extra
Yeah.
to use your math,
Yeah.
you had to pay 30% to your agent and manager, and then when they take it out, do they reimburse you for that?
No.
Holy shit! So you're getting
double dick.
multiple.
Yeah.
funds.
So now all that being said, we did 101 episodes. We did a feature film. That show led to Kickin' It, which was like another 88 episodes. So just on volume alone of episodes, and then I'm a pretty frugal guy. Like I saved money and I'm like doing fine.
Yeah.
Right. I live in an apartment instead of a house. I feel like I should have generational wealth based on the Hannah success. I don't, but I'm doing better than a lot of people. I'm doing better than my parents. You know what I mean? So in some ways, like I could be bitter about some of the stuff, or I could be grateful, and I choose to be grateful. And I hope that I have more opportunities to like make up the difference now that like the contracts are better or whatever. But, so like, and it also doesn't help that like right after Hannah Montana, in the middle of Kicking It, I did get divorced. My wife decided that she was not into this anymore. But again, for all of that, I am still very lucky and very blessed. Not as rich as people would perceive or what I would hope, but I'm definitely not, I'm not worried about ending up out on the street.
Well, I think that's a great perspective to have.
Yes.
Considering how shitty that contract
It's
is.
not a great contract. But again, it's not necessarily, even like, I'm not even like mad at Disney. Disney was working within the framework of what they were allowed to do.
Yeah.
Right? They're a business. Like, so I can't even be like bitter at like that aspect of it. And I still have a great relationship with them. And I work, like, again, I did High School Musical, the series with them. I've done DComs. We did the Hannah feature. Like, I've done lots of work for them. So I'm obviously not that bitter about it.
Yeah.
And I hope to continue the relationship with them moving forward. But
I mean, you are a great spokesperson, I have to say. Like, I mean, it's true.
I'm
like,
such a good company boy.
Yeah, you've shifted my perspective on it, because my perspective of these companies that put children on screen was like, this is all quite exploitative. And the fact that now they have therapists and they're aware of the social media challenge, I mean, you've shifted my perspective. So
there's like, don't get me wrong.
Disney hire him.
Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of like exploitation that happens sort of across the industry, and
of course.
And young people
it's
need
Hollywood.
like
it's built off the back of child labor.
Yeah. But I do think that there, especially with things like Quiet on Set, like there is a business imperative to like take better care of these kids.
I'm sure did you see the documentary?
I didn't want to watch it. It felt like trauma porn to me.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Really?
I didn't need it to let me know that, like, especially on that side, i.e. the Nickelodeon side.
Interesting.
That there was like people that were uncomfortable with stuff that was going on, like the tone of set.
They're on the Nickelodeon side,
Yeah.
you're on the Disney side. Like when you were on Hannah and stuff, were you friends with some of the Nickelodeon stars? Like what was your experience?
I wasn't like personally, like I didn't hang out much. Again, because I was a bit older, so
Yeah.
most of the people that I hung out with like were the people from my show,
Right.
or like we would do a lot of cross promotional stuff on Disney, like the Disney Channel games and like Friends for Change, and
Don't
like,
forget about that. I have questions about
all
that,
that
too.
stuff. And so I had a lot of friends from the channel,
Right.
But we didn't like cross pollinate. I didn't cross pollinate a ton with the Nickelodeon kids. A lot of the people that I knew from Disney did because
yeah.
they were actual in the same peer group.
Yeah.
And so I don't like have any firsthand whatever knowledge, but I do know that like the ongoing joke was, sure, like Disney has its own quirks and own things that you can bitch about when
Yeah.
you're on their shows, but at least nobody's sending feet pics anyplace, sort of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there was just like a weird reputation. And also, even from the standpoint of like just a more toxic, volatile set.
Yeah.
Like I think we really tried to like have it be a bit more harmonious and like supportive across the board
and professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Nickelodeon paid better at the time.
Interesting.
But again, we were all like, it's a fine trade-off. Like,
Yeah.
I'll keep my my feet covered.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said you hadn't seen the documentary, but the thing that it was like watching it, that's why it's also interesting to hear your recount of like a far more positive, set experience as a child actor. Because I think maybe you had the same experience after watching Quiet on Set. I was like, oh, working as a child actor in any of these environments was like being on Howard Stern every single day of your life.
Well, the times have changed on this front a lot, but like the tone, like there's definitely like they're not clean sets.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they're teenagers, and teenagers are just naturally like horny, dumb, crass sense of humor, like sorts of people.
You're
so
also
like
figuring out who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like let me tell you, I was no Peach at that age either. I was a nightmare. So and
there
then
was
add
like
money,
definitely
fame.
there was definitely times where like looking back, I'd be like, oh, we should have never joked around about that.
Yeah.
But it was never in a way that I think felt like threatening or uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus like some of the stuff that you hear like Quiet on Set feels much more like
because it's the adults
much more uncomfortable.
Too. It's like it's one thing to have kids being crazy. You hear about stories on like things where it's like, and all the kids were like drinking and doing and they were all like having sex or whatever. That's teens.
Yeah.
But it's the involvement of like
having adults around,
and I felt really sad too for a lot of
encouraging it.
I know that people. I know people will look back on the people who are complicit sometimes, the adults. But I did feel really sad for some of the like the women, especially who were put into certain positions. They have such deep regret, but it's like I don't know. We've all been in some kind of weird job related situation where someone is pushing you to do something you're uncomfortable with. And maybe you take things, maybe not to that degree, but you've done something, said something, pushed to a degree where you're like, I am not proud of myself, and this feels really, and you just live with that regret. It's very sad.
The female writers, especially on that, on that documentary, spoke to some seriously toxic,
like Howard Stern, like they were kind of like treated like it was like a Howard Stern kind of vibe where it was like
and at the time too, like it's not like currently with how the industry stands right now, it's not like there's an explosion of opportunities, but even then, like for women it was much more difficult, and so a lot of them felt like if they lost this job, this was their shot, and like
and it's like a dream job. They're like in a dream job. It's really I'm very glad to hear it was
positive for you.
I mean it was, but I mean again, like I looking back, like I was in a really weird position too, in that like I was the brother on the show, so like my peer group was the kids on the show, but I was also older, so there was like bridging the gap between trying to be professional, but also like I never wanted to talk down to the kids. They were doing the same job as me. You know what I mean? They had the same responsibilities, in some ways even more so because they were juggling school and Miley with the music stuff on top of it. And I also wanted to be a safe space where like they wouldn't feel judged or like that they couldn't talk to me about whatever was going on. So like it was an environment where it really was so family, and so there was topics that would come up that like now people might be like, why are those kids confiding in you in that parts of it? But like it didn't feel like that at the time, and I don't think it was a bad thing. I think it was just, again, one more resource where a kid could like in a safe space talk about shit that was really going on in their lives.
Yeah.
So like I do struggle with like, you know, the standards for what's appropriate now versus like what was then are just different. And so I don't know if I'd have the same conversations today on set with somebody that like Miley would instigate on Hannah. Miley was like a dude. She was like an open book and she would talk about whatever. And I never wanted to like make her feel bad for expressing her thoughts. Yeah. So like you would just talk about whatever she wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's just a weird, I think that's one of the things that's really complicated now is figuring out what that line is. Like, how do you be supportive? How do you be open? But like, not have it be in a bad or creepy or whatever sort of a way. Do you know what I mean?
I think also too at the time, like, they didn't have those psychiatrists. They didn't have psychiatrists. They didn't have those psychologists. They didn't have those therapists on set. Yeah. And so, you know, now there are resources that you can go direct them to when they do confide in you. You know, sometimes it's a circumstance of necessity, you know, and who, you know, when someone's confiding in you, child or not, like to say go talk to someone else about it, that's equally as dismissive. You know what I mean? So
it's
and they really were they really were like felt like family. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so like if my little sister was legitimately coming up and like asking me my opinion about whatever, like I want to give her an honest like assessment of like how I feel about it and make her feel heard, and whether it was, you know, Miley or Emily or Mitch or whoever, like the kids sets are interesting places for sure.
So I want to go back to the Disney games. So I don't know if you saw on social media, like in the past few months, but like Nick Jonas described the Disney Channel games as like Love Island with teenagers.
But what it really was like Love Island on crack.
And then one of the Sprouse brothers described that he was like, I don't know, that's a bizarre comparison. That's a very weird comparison. That was not my experience. Everyone was sweaty and gross.
Can't compare any situation where it's like 90% 14-year-olds to a show like Love Island.
Jason Earles set the record straight. What were the Disney games like?
I think it depends on who you are. Like if you're Nick Jonas, like isn't the world a big sweaty sex buffet? Right? Like don't like you can kind of hook up with whoever whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're like me or a Sprouse twin, like back in the day, like we're sweaty and we're playing games, bro. Yeah. I think the Disney Channel games was like, it was whatever you wanted to make of it. It was incredible. Like the entire experience was incredible because like not only are you hanging out with like every cool kid from the channel, which is always really fun when they would mix us together, but I'm a really competitive person, so it was really fun to compete against all these other
dunk
kids.
On these 12-year-olds.
Well, that was the thing. I'm so competitive, and I'm so embarrassed at like how much pride I took in just fucking wrecking these kids at these games. Like there's like hamster ball obstacle courses where like you're in one of those big inflatable and like I'm throwing my butt, like knocking 12-year-olds down to try like it was like I won Simon Says one year because they're all 12-year-olds and they have no attention span. Obviously, I'm going to win Simon Says.
You were just listening.
I was just like, because I listened. Yeah. There was a tremendous amount of shit talking, which was really fun. And then the games were actually pretty competitive. Like we really did want to win. And it wasn't like predetermined who was going to win the stuff. So we were, for bragging rights all year, we were trying to win. But then on top of it, we were like at Disney World. And then so like we would shoot during the day and then we had guides that would take us into the parks at night and you could just like walk on to whatever rides. If you want to stay on like the rock and roller coaster 3 times in a row, you didn't even have to get off. You just, right. And then like amazing. Food is all free and like and you're sick. Going in like you're just rolling like a giant crew through the parks.
That's actually so cool. Like,
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
And that's how they got us to do it. They didn't pay us to be in the games. They were like, "We'll fly you to Florida though, and we'll put you up in the in the hotel." And exactly, exploitative child labor for sure.
Exploitation light,
yes, mild.
Yeah, and then Nick Jonas was while you guys were doing that, was fucking somewhere,
throwing that purity ring off into the distance.
No,
off Space
But I mean,
Mountain.
there was definitely like I don't remember like what the situation during that time was. Whether it was like that was still a Miley thing, or whether that was like a I don't know how many Disney gals he was
Oh, I'm sure.
wrapped up
And again,
in.
he's like, you're 17 and like, you know.
But he was
top
on
of
my
the
team
world.
and we won. So that's all I was like, whatever you need to do to get ready for the games, bro.
Whatever your prep is,
Whatever
yeah.
your prep is.
You're
it's
like,
working.
mine is going on the roller coaster.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Jason Earles at 28 on the road. Whee! Like,
No, it was fun though. It was definitely a highlight, and one of the things that like all of us old timers, like
Yeah.
when we get together, we joke around about the Disney Channel games all the time.
okay, so are you still in are you still in touch with Miley? Are you still in touch with your cast? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've talked to Miley.
Yeah.
Like her life is just kind of nuts, and
Yeah.
she has so much stuff going on, and so it has definitely been a minute since like I've hung out with her. I feel like if we ran into each other in the mall tomorrow, it would be like a giant love fest,
Yeah.
and like she would be as excited as I would be to see her. But like I think that's the one of the things that gets really hard to react to when your show's over is like, you know, everybody goes their separate ways and you start
Yeah.
to kind of live your life and do your thing. And you know, I knew her when she from like 13 to like 18 was the window for the show, you know, and so she was literally just starting her adult life. She's got shit to do.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, totally.
But I see Emily occasionally. She doesn't live like too far from me. We cross paths. Mitch Musso talk some. He was out a couple of years ago for like a premiere, and we all like got together and had a dinner. Moises Arias, who played Rico,
Yeah.
he's actually like my godson in real life.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, and his brother Mateo was on the second show that I did, Kicking It. He played Jerry, like one of the kids in the dojo. So like Moises and Mateo, like they've been like, it was like 9 years that I was working with that family.
Yeah.
And I love their mom to death. And so literally like, I think maybe the second season of Hannah Montana, I was like, Monica, I love your boys so much. I know this is crazy, but like if anything, God forbid, were to ever happen to you and their dad, can I have your boys? And she was like, you can have my boys. And
sweet.
so like, so I've been their godfather since like second season of Hannah. And yeah, we probably see them the most.
Yeah.
From Hannah. And then Kicking It, I'm still pretty good friends with everybody from there. I see Leo. Leo was the best man at my wedding. And I see Dylan quite often. See Mateo quite often. Olivia Holt, she lives pretty close to me, so we see each other pretty often.
You know, you do develop this like this kind of bizarre familial relationship
Yeah.
with these people because you're working such extensive hours
Yeah.
together
It's your whole life
it's
while
your
you're
whole
doing it.
life,
Yeah.
you know, and then when it ends, it's this kind of bizarre thing where it's like we know so much about each
Yeah.
other. We have created an entire relationship within this bubble, and then you don't necessarily, not that you wouldn't get together for, you know, no reason, but you don't have a reason
Yeah.
to see each
Yeah.
other.
They're relationships that burn very, very intensely for as long as your show will go.
Right.
And then it's like the star explodes and you go all your different directions. And then every once in a while, something will pull you into each other's orbit again. And then like maybe it's another movie or a TV show or whatever the thing is and it's like you pick up right where you left off. And then the star blows up and you get sent off again to wherever. And it just sort of happens over and over again. It's these explosions that happen like throughout your whole career. And it's like the special thing about it. And it's also like the really sad thing about it because you do get so close to these people and they're such an important part of your daily life. And then all of a sudden that's a wrap. And like, it's 2 days later and you're like, I haven't seen Miley or Emily or
Yeah.
Mitch and I saw them every day for 5 years. So
yeah.
it is one of the things that's a really hard adjustment going back to your like real life once your show's over.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to hear about how you started stand up.
The industry's like in a really weird place right now between like COVID and strikes and tariffs and the, you know, runaway production. Like it's just like it's in a really weird place. And so like from an acting standpoint, I think the thing I've always been most frustrated for like the 20 however many years I've been doing this is that you don't have a lot of agency over like the direction of your career. You're waiting for an agent to call you and give you say you have an audition or to take that meeting or whatever. And I'd always been really interested in stand up, but I didn't know how to like approach it really.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was going to take a stand-up class, actually. And we did this 10-week class together, and there was like a showcase at the end of it. And I really liked it. and felt like it at least gave me a launching point with like how to approach writing. And the thing I do really like about it is it's the thing that I have the most agency over right now as a performer. So
Yeah, you can really go out and get it in a different way than you can with acting.
I can dictate how much I write. I can dictate how many open mics I'm willing to put myself through.
Suffer through, yeah.
And then, you know, when you get fortunate enough to get booked on a show and you get to do an actual like set, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever, in front of an actual audience, like there's something really gratifying about that. It's been interesting. I think it's very hard. I think it's the hardest thing in entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, because you're the most naked.
You 100%.
It's you. It's you. There's no hiding. There's no every inkling and emotion the audience can. On camera, it's always about kind of like minimizing your reactions. You don't want to be too expressive. You kind of just want to like think about the feeling or whatever. And in stand-up, there's almost a little bit of a translation to it because like if you are even if you're performing, but there's any sort of like doubt or defensiveness, I find it for me it's when I get mean, like when I'm in a bitter like place or something, it really like oozes out of me.
Do you feel
and
like you lose the audience?
100%.
Yeah.
Because as a woman, it's and as you know, I'm not a troll, but you know, I'm pretty, whatever. Like I'm not the most beautiful. We got a model here, but like, you know, I'm cute is what I like to say. I'm cute.
I'm easily the least attractive person in this room. So like,
she hated that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She has many other talents. She's also a gifted writer. Harley Strangers. Harley Strangers is out now. 831 Stories. It's also plugged in the description of the box below. Don't kill me.
Yeah, sorry. We need to steal your spotlight for 1 second to replug my book that I've been out since November.
Plug the shit out of it. Plug the shit out of it.
But as a woman, I have to kind of, and as someone who's not playing on the fact, I don't talk about sex, like I'm also not, I'm not making myself look super dumpy or whatever. I have to walk this very fine line of being fun and flirty without being like mean and bitter.
Yeah.
And so I find if I'm not in the right headspace when I get on stage, the audience can sense it.
Yeah.
And so it's so much more naked than I think a lot of other performances because it's you about your life. You and I are both storytellers. So we are talking about our real life shit.
Yeah.
And if you aren't comfortable or in the right spot, it's sensed.
Yeah. I get really like, I just get really overwhelmed sometimes when I think about stand-up comedy specifically, just because there's so many different approaches to it. And like, I really am struggling with like figuring out like what my voice is in that, like, I do feel like I will be most effective and most satisfied if it is personal and it's like about my life.
Yeah.
But you also like don't want it to be just a bunch of stories about you. Like you want it to be sort of universal and things that people can relate to. And so like finding the balance between like writing really constructed jokes, you know, like very clean premise and like a nice punchline versus like telling like authentic stories about your experience and hopefully making it relatable it's challenging because you get more laughs in the constructed version, right? More laughs per minute. But it also, I have a really difficult time with making sure it feels authentic and like that I'm having a conversation with the audience versus just being super presentational.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I have this strong desire to almost tell more actual stories about stuff, but I feel like it's like other comedians like frown on it. Like, do you know what I mean?
I don't think so. I actually don't. I think there's a tradition that is like the traditional like setup punch and like when you're starting, especially and because that's how I also got into stand up, was I took a class. There was one really amazing comic, I'll shout her out, Rebecca Buckley, hilarious comic. She does like improv and sketch, and she was such a good writer. Like it was setup punch, and they were so clever
Super
and witty.
Tight. Yeah.
And I felt like, God, I wish I was like her. And like I would try and almost like, you know, you try when you're starting, you glom on to things that you like and that make you laugh and you want to mirror. You look at Bert Kreischer, who is like one of the biggest touring comedians in the world right now. All his stuff is storytelling. You know what I mean? Like
Nate Bargatze is like somebody that like I really like, and I love the fact that he works clean. Like he's totally right for late night and corporate gigs and whatever, but like you can bring your grandma to it, but you're still gonna laugh. Yeah. And his stuff is very personal and story based. And
another guy who's selling out arenas. You know
And
what I
who's-
mean? So it's
yeah,
like, it's
I mean,
not,
I mean, Dave Chappelle.
Dave
is
Chappelle.
literally only
Yeah.
tells stories.
like even in just this interaction with you, like I'm struck by how like eloquent and articulate and
Yeah.
like put together. And like
I was
you're-
literally going to say the
For
same
the
thing.
dumbest brother in the history of
you're
like the
so-
Disney Channel.
Like those who know you from your work
Yeah.
have this pre-constructed image of you because you're so clean cut. You're so clearly in our head as this in the
Yeah,
iconography.
Yeah.
But to get to hear your take and your experiences and stuff, like even being on set and like interacting with the kids, I really commend you because, you know, I think it would be easy to just like continue to like play the, you know, the funky teacher role or whatever, but like stand up is so difficult and
Yeah.
it's so raw that like I really commend you as an artist for
Yeah.
deciding to dip your toe in there and do it because it's brave.
I appreciate that because the idea that the brother from Hannah Montana is anyway like artistic or has any artistic merit is very funny to me.
Yeah,
Like,
it is. It's
it makes me
hilarious.
laugh.
I mean, it's fucking hilarious. But that's also, I also feel like that the unexpected is always the funniest thing. I have to ask you for the fans.
Yes.
Will there be a Hannah reboot?
It's such a good question. I will, in full transparency, I have pitched twice
Let's go.
Hannah
man.
reboots.
Let's go.
That have been politely declined, and I think the question is not necessarily for me. I think the truth is the only way a Hannah revisitation happens is if Miley is excited about it.
Totally.
And I think that's totally fair. Like she is so iconic for that, and I actually think that there's a really interesting opportunity if she ever wanted to circle back around to it. I know she had some issues with the way some of the story stuff was presented. Like I think that she has some feelings about like people, the way they express themselves and like the self-acceptance and I think she has some strong opinions about that stuff. And if Hannah were to come back around, I think she could put her thumbprints on it and like maybe put some of that stuff out there for a younger audience to like, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think that if she's interested in it, it would happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why she would be interested in it right now.
A post quill, if you will. Like
Yeah.
Hannah now and like at 30. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and in this fictionalized world. I know the little kids want it, but I want it more.
I know. The thing is, I think if it came back around, I don't know if she'd be like ever interested in being like in every episode where it's about her older.
Yeah.
I could see her being like kind of like Dolly was in the original, where she's like the godmother that comes in and like oversees
Love
the
that.
next generation of whatever.
Oh, I love that.
Put
Put Olivia Rodrigo in a blonde wig. Let's do it.
Right. Well, what's funny is like I am not a musical person at all, and I have somehow managed to like be in the orbit of some of the most successful, talented musicians of all time. You know, Miley is incredible. Olivia Rodrigo, like from the very first time I saw her on High School Musical, we did a scene in her bedroom where she's sitting there with a ukulele and she's playing the ukulele and singing a song live, not like to a track. And I was like, holy shit, like lightning is striking again. And her meteoric rise. I mean, even like, and what's funny is like High School Musical specifically, there's so many absurdly talented kids from that show. There's like one of the gals, Julia Lester, she like went and did stuff on Broadway, gets nominated for like a Tony. Adrian Lyles is one of the kids that came on the last 2 seasons, and he's dropping music all the time, and it is phenomenal. He's touring. Joshua Bassett.
Were you on the show when they were on it?
Yeah, I did all 4 seasons.
So they had to go back to shoot after she dropped the like all that internet controversy, didn't they? Like
That was during the season.
that was
yeah.
during the season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Was that really tense on set?
I mean, it was like interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, without getting into anybody's business, I mean, I think that anytime you have like young people and you're mixing like feelings and their art and the pressure of like being on a show and you know releasing stuff and like and again the social media of it all, like there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that were making assumptions about stuff that like don't know
Yeah.
what the truth is.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really knows other than the people that were there, like what was going on. And so, yeah, it was definitely like a challenging part of the show.
Yeah.
The most frustrating parts about working on these like kid shows or like family shows, and having so many young performers is watching how much of their lives get thrown out there.
Yeah.
And then how cruel they are to them. Like Josh had some like really
I know
terrible
he went into
things.
he went into like septic shock, didn't he? From like
he was sick from like something else and had an issue, and then it happened to coincide with when all that stuff
stress was happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard on their
it's hard on all of them. Not
yeah.
only is it hard on them, but it's hard on like the other cast members, and it's hard on the crew. And there's like so many people whose lives are like wrapped up in the whole situation, that it's always like disappointing when those things can't be like sort of held
contained.
Yeah.
And they're
in
young.
space.
I mean, that's part of it. But even you as like an outside, like you were there as like the dead mother and obviously like involved in their lives, but like.
And I love Olivia and I love Josh and I love all of
you
the
give a very
cast
diplomatic
members.
answer. I'll cut it if you want.
No. But it's diplomatic, but it's also the truth. Like it's complicated, and it's teenagers like experiencing their lives in front of everyone, and it's not always like the most fair like process. And I genuinely like my heart bleeds for both of them because neither one of them deserved like a lot of the stuff that was like being written online about it when nobody really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So
most people don't. All right. Well, I've plied you with enough questions, Jason. Thank you so much for coming. This was honestly, this flew by. Like we will definitely have you back.
Back and hang out anytime.
Yeah, our resident like godfather figure, if you will. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
And people should go out and see you. You're a very funny stand-up.
Oh, thank you. You really, really surprised me with how funny you were and how honest you were. And you guys really should go see. Whenever he posts a show, come out.
May the 4th. Sunday, May the 4th.
May the 4th.
Big benefit show. Comedy store. Main room.
Jason's on it. Jason, May 4th.
That's a Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Make-A-Wish. May 4th, Make-A-Wish. I was really impressed. I just want to let you know that. Like, I
think we're slowly figuring it out. You know what I mean?
We're in it together, buddy. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.